left Ohio and went to Saigon, Vietnam in July 1996 and came back to Ohio 25 years later in August 2021. Already crowded and densely populated in 1996, Saigon more than doubled its population over those 25 years, from 4 million to 9 million. Most of that increase is the result of millions coming to the big city from small towns and villages in the Vietnam countryside, hoping to take part in the bustling economic activity of the big city. However, many have a low education and few, if any, marketable skills, so they end up working and sometimes living on the streets. Saigon street vendors range from small children to the very old, and from the very poor to the lower middle class. The poorest among them are the beggars. Are beggars street vendors? A friend of mine, a drama student, said she was taught that beggars were the original actors. And in that sense, I guess they could be called street performers. Most of the beggars have some sort of disability. Some get around with crutches. Some on improvised boards with wheels. Others just get around any way they can. I've seen a few of these guys. They'll keep a wound open day after day, week after week, month after month, trading self-imposed pain for empathy and cash. Selling lottery tickets is a first step up from begging. It's a job nearly anyone can do. Some are children. Sadly, these kids are not enrolled in school. Some sellers have a gimmick, dressing up like a king, or singing and playing guitar. Some lottery ticket sellers are disabled. I have a huge amount of respect for some of these people. Choosing to work when just getting around is extremely difficult. Providing services is, in most cases, a further step up in terms of income, while recycling in the States is generally just an inconvenience. Individuals in Vietnamese cities can earn a meager living providing this service. Some walk along the street, stopping at homes to buy cardboard, plastic, and cans for a small price, then selling it at collection points for a slightly higher price. Others with bicycles or motorbikes will perform the same service for small businesses, shops, and restaurants. They often end up with some pretty impressive loads. Shining shoes requires a small investment for polish and a brush, but they can make $1 or $2 for a pair of shoes. You can actually get your disposable lighter refilled with a new flint for about 10 cents. And motorbike mechanics are everywhere. And occasionally, someone will come along and sharpen all your knives for a small price. I met Udet shortly after I went to Vietnam in 1996. He was just a shoeshine boy, but a very special one. Despite his shriveled legs and having to get around on his hands and his butt, he was always extremely cheerful and full of confidence, and brought happiness to any place he visited. He was one of those domestic migrants who came from his hometown to make some money in the big city. And on a shoeshine boy's income, I'm sure he was living on the street. He had a twin brother with him and some friends who I'm sure all relied on each other for support. My Ciclo driver helped me find a place that could build a special undersized wheelchair for him. It took them about a week and they did it for $100. I surprised him with it one night at the coffee shop and was happy to see he was able to pull himself up into it and was able to get around with it easily. I saw him again a few weeks later and was disappointed to see he was once again getting around on his hands and his butt. But he quickly found someone who spoke English well enough to explain. He had a sister back in his hometown who suffered from the same disability, and he took it there for her to use. A friend once told me, helping someone is sometimes a very difficult thing to do. Although Udet was not actively seeking sympathy, sympathy had quite a bit to do with the amount of money he could earn. Sometimes help isn't help. Then I moved to a new neighborhood and lost touch with Udet. A few years later, I was out having coffee with some other teachers, and Udet came scooting around the corner. So, of course, I invited him in to join us for coffee. Fruit and vegetables account for most of what is sold on the streets. There is a huge variety of fruits in Vietnam, with many of them coming and going in and out of season, so there is a constantly changing variety. Grapefruit is my favorite fruit in Vietnam. Unlike the grapefruit we have in the States, these are pear-shaped and naturally sweet rather than sour. It's often served as dessert after a meal. Durian is a strange fruit. It's rather large and covered with sharp spikes. Luckily, the vendors will open them up for you and put the edible part in a styrofoam to-go box. Inside are usually four large pits, inside a pulpy mass, with a texture that immediately strikes you as something you should not have in your mouth. and with a taste that seems to match the texture. But probably the most striking thing about the durian is the smell. It has a pungent odor that seems to permeate everything around it and can last for days. But most people quickly acquire a taste and grow to love it. I sure did. Vendors who carry baskets often, but not always, work for others. Distributors, I guess we can call them, prepare 10 or so sets of baskets, and then the vendors pick them up and head out to the streets to sell. Prepared food ranges from snacks to pop-up sidewalk restaurants. Fruit is a good healthy snack and is often sold alongside potato chips and candy. Sticky rice is another favorite snack. Some is wrapped in banana leaves, and the way it's wrapped will tell you what's inside. Soy is a type of sticky rice often sold in the morning. Some call it the poor man's breakfast. One of my favorite snacks is fried bananas. Sometimes selling on the streets can become a family affair and a gathering place for friends in the afternoon. Vietnamese bread is actually the French baguette, a legacy of the French colonization period of the late 1800s. You can also find some specialty bread and cake on the streets. Mobile restaurants can pop up just about any place where there is a nice wide sidewalk. Vendors will often have their own spot where you can find them every morning, afternoon, or evening. Others set up shop right outside their own front door. Pho, Vietnam's famous beef or chicken and noodle soup, is often better on the streets than in restaurants. Brooms. Baskets. Charcoal. Towels. Tablecloths. Posters. Rugs. Pillows. Hammocks. Plastic goods. Clothes. Shoes. Hats. Helmets. Sunglasses. Flowers. Newspapers. Photocopied books. CDs. Cigarettes. Toys. Incense. And finally, the oldest vendor. I used to see this old woman out selling incense, I guess about once a week. One day I sat down on the curb next to her and we had a short conversation. She said she was 94 and had outlived her entire family, all her children and grandchildren. The last few years I was there, I didn't see her anymore. Quite a lady.